Hello, this is Kathy Leo with the New York State Computer Science 4-H program, and today I'm going to share some tips on how to get your characters or sprites to appear to be moving on your screen. So the first thing you're going to do is we're going to look at our sprites, and some of our sprites have movement already built in based on how many costumes they have. So if you hover over the sprites, you'll see what movements they have and which ones don't have movements. So these don't have any movements and some do. And I'm going to show you in a few minutes how to get around that. So the first one we're going to look at is the butterfly, and it has two costumes already built into it. So if you go to the costumes, you'll see that they have two costumes here. So we're just all we need to do is add some code. So we're going to go to the looks blocks and we're going to go down to next costume, and we're going to put a forever loop on that. And you can click on that, and that looks a little fast. So we're going to throw in a wait block in there, and maybe we'll make that 0.5 and see what that looks like. So that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to tell the computer when to start flying. And we're just going to do that when the sprite is clicked. When we click this sprite, it appears to be flying. Now I said some of the sprites don't have a second costume, but we can fix that. So one of the easiest ways is if we go to the beetle and look at its costume is you'll see that there's only one, but if you right click this and duplicate it, all you have to do is just move the entire beetle to one, and we can just play around with that. We can create another costume and maybe shift them to a little bit to the other direction. And then we can go back to code and we can just cheat and just take this code that we use for the butterfly and hover over it, our beetle, and put it in there. So that when we click the beetle, he looks like he's doing a little dance. And you could have him spin all the way around, but that's just using the next costume block. So the next one we're going to look at is the crab. So we're going to pull up our crab. And we're going to look at his costumes, and he has two costumes. He has a closed claw and an open claw, but maybe you want to make him look like he's crawling across our moon here. So we can duplicate him by right clicking his costume, and you want to make sure that he's in vector, which he is, and then you just highlight the entire crab and you can ungroup him or group him. So we want him ungrouped because we're going to move some of his pieces. And then what you can do is just move his claws if you wanted to make his claws look like they were moving up and down. So we can slightly shift the claws. And you could play with his legs too. You make them move. And all of these movements, you can see what they look like when on the screen as well as you play with them. So we're going to move his leg a little bit. And we can move this leg a little bit. But again, just make sure that you have him in vector. Otherwise, you will not be able to ungroup him. There we go. And again, we can go back to our code and just copy our code from our beetle into our crab, and just by hovering. And then you can see that he opens his claws and then does a little bit of a dance as well. These are all moving in place, but you can also make them move up and across the screen. So what we're going to look at next is our bear. And we're going to choose our bear walk, and he's a little too big. So we're going to change his size a little bit to 75. That looks good. And so we're going to go back again to looks, and we're just going to change next costume because he already has a bunch of costumes in there that make him appear like he's walking. And we're going to want him to start walking when we click him, but we have to add some control. So we're not going to use the forever loop because I want him to walk back and forth this time. So we're going to have him repeat 10 times. And he looks like he's moving a little bit too fast. So I'll put a wait block in there as well. So maybe 0.3. That looks pretty good, but we want him to actually move. So we're going to go back up to motions, and we're going to put a 10 steps in there so that he actually looks like he's walking across. And when he gets to the end of the screen, maybe I'll want him to turn around and come back. So if you go down here, you can have him point in the opposite direction. So we'd want him to point in negative 90 degrees. But we don't want him to turn upside down completely. We want him just to rotate around left and right. And then we want him to start off pointing to the right. So we want him to be pointing in 90 degrees when he starts walking. Walk 10 steps and then turn around. And then maybe we want him to back. So we can duplicate this code by right-clicking it and just putting that underneath. And then, of course, we'd have to change him back that we want him to turn back to the right. So we'd have to change that from -90 to +90. And so we can put all this on in one thing and then click the sprite. And he starts pointing to the right, walks back. And then maybe you want him to do that forever and just pace across our moon. Maybe he's a little nervous bear there. So we can bring our forever loop and put all that inside of our forever loop and then click that onto when the sprite is clicked, so that whenever the bear is clicked, he always starts off pointing to the right and then he paces back and forth. Another way that you can create movement is if we go back to our butterfly, you could add a motion block there, and we have a bunch of these glides. So I'm just going to take the easy way and just do a glide for 1 second to a random position and pop that in. And then so he glides around and flies throughout the screen, but you can actually have him glide to a specific location if you wanted to, or you could use the motion blocks or the spin blocks as well. So I hope you enjoyed this little tips and tricks. Have fun coding your sprites and having them move across your screen. Thank you.